Look at that. Look at that. What's up?
What's going on?
Let's bring in our special guest here.
I'm still hearing some like funky music in the background there.
Oh, you are? There.
There we go.
How about that?
What's up, Tom Cole?
Still can't hear Trav. I can see him smiling.
Oh no.
But that's all I got. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I can hear you. We can hear you good. I can hear Trav as well.
Got it. I don't hear Trav.
All right. Well, welcome to the show. Trav, maybe try muting yourself, see if that works for Tom there. I got Tom loud and clear, Trav loud and clear.
Can you hear me
everybody, now? Yeah, we can definitely hear you. Looking good. Everybody in the chat. Everybody in the chat, sound off if everything looks good, sounds good. Really excited to have Tom on the show today. It's not every day we get to have president of the NXL on the show.
That guy.
Trav, you still there, bud?
I'm still here. I don't know if Tom can hear me though.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm not hearing him at all. I hear you fine.
No. Shoot.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You there?
Did I fix it? Yep. Nope. Okay.
Can hear.
I hear you. Still don't hear Trav.
He's gonna restart his setup there. Maybe that'll work. But in the meantime, while Trav's doing that, again, thanks for coming on. Definitely excited to have you on, and just kind of talk some paintball. We have a lot going on and a lot not going on.
Yeah, I feel a lot more not going on than going on at this point. But yeah.
Exactly. So how's everything going for you?
It's good. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it's a trying time for sure. My woman's a traveling emergency room nurse, so I'm in a hotel now. We still so she's moving around from place to place, going to where different places that need nurses. So
Wow. So you said she's a traveling nurse.
Traveling nurse. So basically, she has a little app or a website that tells her where they need nurses, and she accepts the job and goes there and works for different periods of time. So
Wow. So that's got to be pretty crazy during this time. Definitely, definitely very dangerous, and hopefully you guys are staying safe.
yeah, we're trying. I mean, she's a little. I mean, she's tough, right? So she's all about kind of getting in there and getting the thick of it. I mean, the emergency room is probably the worst place. So
Hmm.
so I'm kind of
Yeah.
self quarantined. I live in Alabama, and so we don't really have that much of a quarantine going on in Alabama. So, but we've stayed self quarantined because I'm sure she's brought it home to me at some point. So
Yeah. I'm actually in Arkansas, which if Travis was on right now, he'd be telling you that I basically live in Alabama. That's what he likes
yeah.
to say. Here, Trav's back. Let's see if we can get him in here.
All
Trav, you
right,
there?
can you hear me now?
I got you now.
Oh, thank
There it
God.
is. Nice.
See, I bought these
Awesome.
big headphones so everybody could hear me. I want to make sure I get my use out of them.
Yeah, you can fly a helicopter. You can hear Travis. We're good to go.
Yep, I'm on it. I'm on it.
All right. So first off, Tom, congratulations on the engagement.
Thank you.
That
Thank
was
you very much.
that was cool. So if everybody out there that we can now say that Tom is off the market.
Yeah, I'm like a used car. I think I've been off the market for longer than I think. Yeah.
And you bought a house in Alabama, same state as
In
Cali.
Alabama. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. That's what he just said. It feels like the same state. Yep. We're basically in Alabama.
Does not feel like the same state. Let's just make that clear.
I don't know. I
I'm
haven't put as much time in yet. I've only been in Alabama for like 3 weeks, so
I live in the very, very northwest corner, and I haven't left like a 45-mile radius where I'm at. But yeah, Travis just likes to lump us all in together.
It's like one
yeah.
big happy.
Well, the
area.
northwest, you make the northwest corner sound like it's a metropolis or something. That's basically the southeast corner of Missouri. So it's not like you went way up there.
I mean, you gotta give it.
It's not like you're on the
gotta
border
give
of
it-
Rhode Island or something.
No, definitely not.
And Oklahoma, which is, the home of the Tiger King. So you're right in that little
Yes.
corridor there.
Yes. Yeah, we got some. We're breeding them strong out here.
Yep, that's for sure. It's cheap though. It's very inexpensive.
That's one of the reasons why we love it for sure.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
Tom was just talking about how he's self quarantining and has what you said she's a traveling nurse, right?
She's
Your
a
fiance?
traveling emergency room nurse.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have a
So it's
regular
gotta be
job.
crazy
She
right
gets
now.
moved from location to location. So
she's in like the hot zone.
yeah, she's always in. Oh, there we go. Good. Thanks, Trav. We're in the. I'm in Augusta, Georgia, right now. The home of the Masters, I think, is where this
That's
is.
right.
So
Yeah,
she's
sure.
here. She's working as a nurse right now. So I'm in a little hotel room.
Right on. So let's jump into it. This is cool because we've been doing this show for like the last couple of weeks since we've been like trapped in quarantine, and we've had just tons of comments in our chat about like, because we just say, hey, what do you guys want to see? What do you want to talk about? And they're like, bring Tom Cole in. So we were like, all right, let's bring Tom Cole in. So this is cool that it's finally coming to fruition. I guess we'll start with like the beginning of the NXL season. Vegas was awesome. The weather was phenomenal as usual. Had a pretty exciting VIP story. I don't know if you want to share that, but that was
Sure. We had a fight in the VIP. That it was hilarious. So obviously I dealt with the situation. I missed the finals, which I was pretty pissed off about. And then I'm on Facebook and people are like, that's why paintball won't grow and that's the end of the NXL and all this stuff. And I'm like, first, let's just start. MMA is like one of the biggest sports on the planet. They actively are punching each other, and every professional sport has some type of fight in it. You know what I mean? It's people get hit. I don't know. Everybody acts like it's going to be the downfall of the world. If everything got shut down every time someone got punched at it, there'd be no basketball, no football, no baseball, nothing. So it's funny how people want to hold us to a higher level than the rest of the world, but it's kind of silly.
Yeah, I think I remember in the NBA, some athletes actually came into the stands and beat up the fans.
Twice. It's happened twice. because I looked it up to prepare myself for arguing with people. Yeah, it's happened twice that players went into the stands to fight people. And and there's always fights in the stands between different people, right? It's if you're passionate about the game and you drink, then things are going to happen, right? So you add all those things together. So yeah, it's pretty funny.
Right on. But yeah, not to take away from that. I mean, obviously the Ironman won the event. It was kind of
Was amazing.
Yeah, no one really picked those guys to win. They came out, they played awesome. And it's been a super long time since those guys have won. So
I was super happy, and I really I mean, they call this coronavirus, right? And their home field is in Corona, California for a while. I think they brought it out so they'd win the series. I'm really thinking that's my undercover plan. The Ironman.
Interesting strategy there.
Yep, going to win the title. Going to win the title. But yeah, Vegas is one of the biggest events. I mean, I think we had 260 teams. I mean, that's not that far away from the size of the first NXL World Cup that we had in 2015. So things were really on the track to do well. So I was pretty happy.
And then obviously, we were all looking forward to Texas, and we were talking about on our show last week with the X Factor guys that we were supposed to be, practicing this weekend in San Antonio. Obviously that's not happening. Next weekend we were going to be at AC Dallas, and then obviously there's no event and all this stuff. So when did you realize that Texas wasn't going to
to be honest, I still haven't really realized, but your wife sent me like a terse message because I was like still trying to keep the game going, and she was like, you can keep like lying to yourself if you want, but Texas is not going to happen. And I was like, whatever, So I guess that probably that next day I kind of realized we probably weren't going to have Texas. So we started working on the announcements.
Well, Barcelona was first. So you were first.
Yeah. So Barcelona was strangely easier for us because it's a smaller event and it's a hard travel to destination for a lot of the Europeans. And I knew they were in a lot more lockdowns, and they were actually traveling internationally, a lot of them. So in the United States, I feel like we don't lock our borders that fast, which we have now, I guess. But Europe is quicker to lock their borders. They're smaller little areas there. So I was a little concerned. And our events rely on many countries over there, whereas the U.S. event can get away with just one event. I mean, the last thing I expect, Texas would cancel their stuff. But Spain, I knew, was on the verge of doing stuff, so.
Right. So they acted actually like the city of Austin. Or Round Rock? How did that go down?
So they wouldn't tell us. So we had a call with them, and it was funny because I was like, so can we have the event? Can we legally have the event? And the lady was a little dumbstruck because she was like, you're the first event promoter that's even said that. So I don't even have an answer. And I was like, because I want them to tell me we can't have it. You know what I mean? Make my life a little easier. But then the World Health, the World Health Organization, or the CDC announced in the U.S. they did not suggest anybody having an event over 50 people. So that's kind of what we followed as a guideline. And once again, I check our Facebook stats. Some guys they pulled the plug a little early, and I'm like, the CDC. I'm not an expert in communicable diseases. The CDC is. If they say no one over 50 people, I go with no groups over 50 people.
Right.
So, and Infamous alone has that many people. So that's where I'm at.
Well, and I think there was other major film and music festivals that had been canceled in that area already. So, I mean, much larger than.
Yeah, I mean, literally, there was a moment of silence when I said, "So can we still have the event?" She was like, "I'm not. It's the one question I'm not prepared to answer. I didn't think anybody would want to have an event."
Yeah.
I'm like, we got a core group of people.
Yep.
So
I guess the $1 million question, obviously, that everybody's. It's on everybody's mind right now is NXL Virginia. I mean, that's kind of the next progression. So, is there any plan?
You want my gut instinct? I mean, we have plans upon plans upon plans. I'm famous for hedging, so I have multiple plans at all times. But I mean, my gut instinct is that Richmond's not going to happen. But we are awaiting. We had a call with Richmond a week ago, which is funny because every time I say I have a call with Richmond, they think I'm actually talking about Richmond Italia. But the city of Richmond called, and they are full board moving forward. And King's Dominion, which is the resort there, it's sort of like, I'm gonna call it Disney World, but much smaller, like a Six Flags. They are giving each one of our players free passes for the whole weekend. So they're still, I mean, I just received that email yesterday from King's Dominion. So they work hand in hand with the governor there. They told me that they have they have their stay-at-home orders until the 10th, I believe, June 10th, and we're 15 days after that. So there you go. Thank you. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that, but we're still plugging away. But my gut instinct is it's not going to happen.
So that's just kind of, we're playing it by ear, and when you guys know something, we'll know something.
Yeah, and it changes every day. I'll hear the news one day, and it'll look like everything's clearing up, and our fearless leader Trump gives us misinformation or like different versions every day, so it's hard to stay up.
Right on.
I think everybody's hopeful, right? Like we all want to play, but in certain situations, your hands are just tied. So we just hope that we can hear some good news about any kind of paintball stuff.
Yeah, which actually leads to my next point. Like, what can we as, NXL team or pro team or any team for that matter that plays in the NXL, what can we kind of do to help?
I think this is a good start, right? The fact that you have this video going on. I think we need to keep things relevant and not let people just kind of fall off the face of the earth. It's hard, right? Because you realize, especially during something like this, how much paintball is a lifestyle. It's not just like something we do for fun or something that we do for our job. It is who we are, right? So when you take that away from us, we kind of flounder a little bit. So we just have to keep that going and keep everybody excited about what's happening and debate about now's the perfect time. So I'm always afraid to pull triggers on changes, and the seasons kind of run together, right? Like everybody thinks we probably just hang out all the time, but like it's a lot to do, especially running 11 events, I think this year we were supposed to run. And then by the time the end of the season comes up and I start thinking about what we're going to do in the next season, then I'm like, well, it's too late to pull the trigger on anything new. So now's a good time to debate the format question, the all the different stuff that we're always talking about when we get amongst our paintball groups about the future of paintball.
Right. Like you mentioned, you're always hedging your bet and coming up with backup plans. So
yep.
Obviously
I call that 10-man at this point. 10-man.
Which is that's my backup plan too, by the way.
That's all our backup plan.
We can just go hide in the woods. They'll never know we're there, and just
That's
play paintball.
Camo.
Trust
for
me,
life.
I don't see how they can stop us from doing it. I'm working on backup plans. Like one of our contingencies right now would be to, because to be honest, one of the people that are most affected by this in our industry are going to be the paintball parks, and since they really are the lifeblood of what we do. I've been trying to come up with a way to help ourselves and help them maybe kickstart this once things go back. And so one of our options is to do regionalize the last 3 events, to do away with Chicago and Richmond, and do an event on the West Coast, an event in Texas, an event in the Mid-Atlantic area, and go back to paintball parks. And that way we would be giving that money that we would normally pay for a venue, which could be expensive, like the World Cup venue is almost $50,000. Not that we'd want to pay a park that, but get some of that money to go back to the parks. Yeah, and go host one in your yard. I like that actually. You got the cool pond. Gives the money back to the parks and kind of bring it back to the basics. I know, the PSP had done that for a while because they survived the financial crisis that happened last time. And one of the ways they did that was going through paintball parks. And that's one of the things that the PSP does not get enough credit for was, everybody was kind of like, we're back doing this and we're doing this, but they enabled tournament paintball to survive that little crisis there. And I went back and actually read the PB Nation post when they posted that they were going away from Xball to Race to 4 or Race 2, whatever the format was at the time. And you would have thought they were trying to steal people's babies or something. I mean, they just got destroyed on there. I was trying to read what I was going to get when I try and change the format. So, I mean, they made some tough steps to try and get them out of there. So,
yeah, I remember those days. We were back at parks, and USPL went to parks, and it was like a whole thing.
Yeah, it's a whole different world. It's funny. I don't remember any of that. I mean, I remember going back to parks, but I don't remember it being that big of a deal. But so my thought were, and we'll just talk about the pro side since that's who I'm on here with. The West Coast teams, there's basically 5 of them that could drive along the West Coast. So you got the 2 Northwest teams, you got the 2 Southern California teams, then you got DMG right out of the center. So that's 5 teams that could drive to Sacramento, let's call it Dave Baines' park, right? And they could drive to that, and then we would bring in one of the Fly 2 teams. We'll call that Impact for argument's sake. And so there'd be 6 teams that would play a little pro circuit there. We would do the same thing in Texas, bundling them up with the Florida teams, and we would do the same thing out of the Northeast. But the Northeast would get 8 teams, just because that's where most of our pro teams are centered. And we would run 3 little miniature tournaments from the pro side. And that way everybody would get a chance to play one without traveling, without spending all that extra money. And it would just be back at the park. So we'd give that what we'd normally give the venues to the park, kind of split it up that way.
Would you have divisionals there as well, or that was just pros?
Yeah, we would. We would think. I would think it would be about 70 teams. So the real challenge is the semi-pro and the D2 guys, because they're kind of sparse. But yeah, we would run that full thing, and so we would run a lot of those guys on the pro field. So we would have a pro field. You guys would only have 6 teams. So if you played 5 matches or whatever, we would still have all those guys play. So yeah, we were trying to find, and one of the reasons behind this is to try and go back to only 3 fields during this, so that we could use a paintball park without incurring all the cost of shipping all that stuff. No one thinks of that, but we ship, I think it's 5 tractor trailers altogether, and it's $2.50 a mile per truck. Since it's 2,500 miles across the United States, that's a lot of money. So if we can just cut all that out and use the parks and then we can also fix up the parks. You know, if we went to, we'll use OXCC. If we go in there and we decide that we want to put in some new poles or do whatever we want to do to the pro field a little bit, that's something we're going to leave for the local teams to get to use after the fact. So I think that could help everybody.
Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool. So it would be the same format, or would there be any kind of format changes?
So, I mean, it would be the same format. That would be my gut instinct. Yeah, that'd be the same. I mean, we've looked at everything. I've looked at 5-man, 7-man, 10-man, race to single match format, everything. Right. And right now, I mean, everyone seems to like the format. I argue with a lot of people all the time, and people will concede my point on like the single point game, like a 7-man or 5-man, but no one loves it. So, and they do seem to like the format we have now. So.
Right on. Right. Everybody keeps asking about your dog in the comments here.
Yeah, he's something else. He's more famous than I am by far. He's here in the hotel with me. He goes everywhere.
Like every 10 comments, there's a dog comment.
Yeah. It's between that and the companies, right? That's what I get. If I make a post, I get "how's the dog," and then someone will just write "company" with exclamation points. So mostly
somebody
Todd
wanted
Martinez.
to know who made your dog's Facebook page.
I have no idea. I can only guess it's a GI person, because they all kind of get this weird look on their face about it. But I can't even post stuff. I tried to put something on it. It's like, you're not an authorized poster or something. I'm like, that's good. Good. My dog. Yeah.
Right on. Right on. So obviously that was all hypothetical, just for the people that just kind of came in mid talk. So hey, there he is.
There's Tom Cole's dog.
I think I could hear his collar jingling around, maybe.
Yep, that's him. Yeah.
Nice.
Yep,
awesome.
He's here. He's here.
Nice.
He's got his own show in a little while.
Yeah, he's up next.
He's going to give us the real scoop.
Yep. He's got the real down.
So I got to stop looking at those comments, because I get sucked in and it's just like all these crazy questions. Mm-hmm. The other thing that was pretty big on my list was the NXL Classic. I mean, obviously that's the other half of NXL, and it was almost like you read this, right? You had a super early NXL in like January, the ICPL, and then the other one isn't until like the end of the season. So it's like perfect as far as timing. So any updates on that?
No, I mean, we still plan on that. I think they're relatively simple from a logistics point of view for us to run. And that's the other advantage of going to paintball parks. So when I go, to the Gaylord Palms, there's a lot of government oversight in that, right? We have to file permits, and we have to go with the health inspector. We have to go through the fire marshal. Any one of those people during this crisis can just be like, "You've lost your freaking mind. We're not going to allow you to host an event." But when I go to Renix, it's lawless. So
it's Renix law
in more ways than one. So I can just go up there and kind of have an event, and we're averaging 40, 50 teams for the 10-man thing. So that could kind of float under the radar, and nobody can really go do anything. So
right. And I think obviously, like, when you're dealing with putting on events at these different locations, a place like Gaylord Palms is under restrictions. Like, hey, we can only have 50 people or 100 people. You can't have 1,000 people here. But Renix Park might be able to do something different. So
that's for sure. That's a big area, right? We got people spread out over an area where we can make it so that it's like 50 miniature tournaments going on at the same time, right?
Right.
So,
right. Is there a possibility of adding an additional ICPL, or
give me like a little sub event in there? I actually haven't thought of that. I see you smiling already, but yeah, I mean, I would love to for sure. I'll have to look at that. That's a good idea. My 10-man guys have not been beating me up yet about trying to do something. It's mostly the NXL guys in Europe and the US that are constantly pounding me. So that's kind of what's been on my forefront. But yeah, we'll have to look at that. Maybe we could squeeze in another 10-man.
Well, Brett was
That'd be
actually
nice.
supposed to join us because Brett had a ton of questions about Europe. There he is. So
there he is.
What's up, Tom?
How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Doing great.
What, do you not like me?
Why? What did I do?
I'm just-
Oh, it's like, the European contingent, right? When
Oh, yeah.
the Europeans bring a whole nother level.
I know,
No,
I know.
I thought Brett would be an awesome addition to this because he's obviously an Infamous player, but he also plays in Europe, and so
These guys.
he has very specific questions about what's going on in Europe and when's the next European event. Do you have any insight to that side?
So Europe is more of a challenge than the United States right now, for our point of view. One, we haven't had our first event yet. Small dog. We haven't had a European event yet, and we also have the entire Nations Cup situation, right? So we have a lot going on in Europe. And since we haven't had an event, and Europe has had a more extreme lockdown than we have, there's a treaty over there, right? There's the Schliemann Treaty or something like that about traveling between countries. So we are waiting for some of that stuff to get resolved even before we start planning. But Europe is a completely open book. We may move events around. We may cut events down. It's a complete open book. We may end up just having one event over there. We may end up having two events over there. It's a complete open book right now. And Europe has been affected less economically than the United States has because their governments have subsidized more than we have. There's a lot more rules about employees over there, so no one just got laid off, sort of like they did in the United States.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah, I know. I just from talking to the ProShar guys, they're starting to see some stuff open up. Like Sweden, for example, didn't do anything; they never even closed. So they are starting to loosen up, and I guess paintball will be played in Europe shortly. So we'll see.
It's just tough because we require people to cross so many borders to get to us, and each one of them has different restrictions. So it limits everything. Even if you have to fly through, let's just say France has stricter rules, and you're coming in from Sweden and you stop by Paris, they may deter you. Or when you go back into your country, they may make you do a mandatory 14-day quarantine. So it's going to be interesting, and it'll just be neat to see where it all falls and what can happen. But I have heard some of the local leagues have canceled completely. I don't know if that's true, but like the French Federation has postponed their season completely. So people are going to want to play. So hopefully we can give them something to do.
Yeah, that's totally what I'm banking on, is that people are sick of watching Netflix. They've watched all the YouTube videos that are available, and they've beat every video game, and they're ready to go get outside and play paintball.
Yeah, the one secret benefit of this is Netflix. But yeah, that's the vibe I'm getting. At least the people that can afford it are going to want to play. So we got to give them something that they can do.
Right on.
In talking to my teammates in England and also other people in Europe, it was certainly going through my mind that there was a better chance we were going to play NXL Virginia in June than we're going to play the NXL Europe in England in July, just because of how much more they're on lockdown, and places like London are seeing these kind of issues. And that I was kind of curious what you thought about I missed the first half hour, so excuse me if you guys already covered this. Probability on Virginia happening in June.
I would give it an 80% against.
Yeah, it's not looking good with the governor there.
Yeah, no, the governor's till June 10th has declared a lockdown. And then the other thing is, one of the challenges we face is we rely on big team turnouts. You know what I mean? Like, we're a 200+ team type of event in order to survive. And it's hard to get those numbers. It doesn't take a lot to throw that off. I mean, we have European teams that come in that can't fly in. I have Latin American teams that are not going to be able to fly in. I have Canadian teams that aren't going to be able to fly in, or Canadian players that can't come in. So there's a lot of challenges, right, just there. And so what would happen is we'd end up with an event, even if we did decide to host the Richmond event, we'd look at a 150 team count type situation. And so that's not that good for us. And what would do for the Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what's going to happen to the pro bracket. Because the Russians can't come, what's going to happen, right? Do we throw them out now because of whatever, or do they not get the same amount of events as everybody else did? It's a unique situation.
Great question. So
Yeah.
if there are some teams, some pro teams, for example, that don't survive this economic fall, like how does the NXL, like what's the natural progression? What's who's up next? Do you promote a semi-pro team, or are you going
are we going to open it up? So we have a system now where we typically, unless you find an end around, like Level Up, another one of my sore topics in the off season, but we would offer to the first semi-pro team to see if they wanted to step up. And even in my regional system, I've contacted a couple of the semi-pro teams just to kind of get their feedback on whether they would want to move up in this regional type format and play pro. I mean, even like you guys had a great match against Level Up, right? There is some parity out there. I know people think that everybody's going to get destroyed when they step up to pro, but I mean, these semi-pro teams are good. And they may not be as good as the top tier pro teams right off the bat, but I mean, they can give anybody a run for their money. I actually thought they beat you. I left the VIP to go congratulate them when I got over there. They were still playing you, and then they lost. And I was like, I just fled because I didn't want to tell them that I thought that they had won. But because obviously I was emotionally committed to those guys because we got so much shit in the off season. So no offense to Infamous, but I was hoping they were going to win that one.
I already know
I root for anybody.
You took them out to dinner. You did all this.
Yep, took them out to dinner. Yeah. I try to take the new pro teams out to dinner.
We have 11 teams in your league, and you don't take us to dinner.
Yeah, I know. But I work with your wife. You know what I mean? I see you all the time. It's a whole different deal. You went to my birthday party. That should count. But
all right.
Part of the problem is, and it's a challenge that I have, and I think everybody in my position ends up having this, is you have your go-to people that you want to talk to, right? So I basically vicariously through Camille get your opinion on about 80% of the stuff. I talk to, Rennick or whoever. I have my go-to people to talk to about different stuff, and it's good to get new teams perspective because everybody doesn't have the same opinion, and the challenges that Bart has is not the same challenges that Level Up's gonna have.
So wait, let's just talk about it. Who are your like sounding board people? Who do you call? Who's your go-tos?
I'm sure they hate me because I call them all the time. Well, obviously it starts in-house first, right? I talk to Jason and Camille mostly, and Chris Rail. They're my first three to go to with my crazy ideas. And they're my first sounding board, and I really don't get half of it past them. And then I move past them because I still want to get my agenda through. So I would say Dave Painter is probably my number one call on the pro side. He's dead in the middle and seems pretty objective. Greg Pauly is definitely who I call to when I want to figure out the negatives and how it's going to go shady. Tim Montrester's another one that gets called probably once a week on the team side. I don't know. That's a good enough list, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Pretty good list.
Yeah, just curious.
I mean, and then I go through the industry, right? I talk to Leads probably once a week. I really like Leads.
Best guns out there, you got to.
You're not going to get me to say that. I do shoot one, though. I do shoot one.
Okay.
I talk, once again, I talk to Tim from Lux all the time. I talk to Billy Sharansky actually probably once every week. Joe from Falcon, I think y'all know I talk to him constantly, mostly about you guys. I'm kidding. I just decided to push that button. That's all. I talked to the two Chris's from Die and Virtue, and Dave from ProShars, my European consultant there. He's harder for me to read. I haven't known him for 20 years, right? So he's harder for me to get a thing on. So, yeah, there's an X factor there for sure. But I mean, I wear like this headset. I bought this headset because I talk on the phone so much. It's burning my ears up. And none of the little headsets would last long enough. So I got the one that lasts like 12 hours a day.
So you're like driving down the road with the helicopter?
No, I won't take. This is just inside. This is just for my inside office. I have
The helicopter.
I have a different one. Yeah.
Got
Or
it.
if I really need to get the women, you know what I mean? They really start getting sucked in by these.
So how are the NXL owners? What's their thoughts? Like what's kind of going through their heads right now?
How to put this? they're handling it well. You know what I mean? They're just as mad as everybody else that they're on lockdown, right? Like I pitched them the other day this idea of going to the regional thing, and their first thing was, so we're only going to get one event between now and World Cup. And I'm like, yeah, well, I don't know how many events we're going to be able to run before World Cup, regardless. But yeah, I mean, they're excited about paintball. I mean, we have some stuff in the works. I'm not even going to mention, but we have some stuff in the works they're excited about. So they're
You just
I
mentioned
can't
it.
mention it. Yeah, but I didn't mention what specifically it was.
Right on.
And they're super excited about it, and they're still excited about paintball. So, I mean, that's actually one of the challenges our industry faces. Is everyone that designs a format or comes up with a model for running tournaments, we're all passionate about paintball. So we don't look at it as a business. We look at it as something we do is for fun. And so we've kind of built a model that's real expensive to run and real expensive to do. So.
Yeah. So that's what the owners are thinking. You said you talked to all these like industry people. What's some of the feedback you're getting from the industry, like NXL sponsors? What are they saying?
I mean, it really varies on the size of the company. I think the small companies are looking at this as kind of a pause, and the big companies are concerned. Obviously, if you're selling to paintball fields and people are not playing paintball, that's going to have an effect upon your business. So we're just trying to make it as easy on them as possible to try. And that's one of the reasons of going back to fields and looking at different formats to make it as easy as possible for these companies to stay involved with us and the teams, right? So I think if I tried to host 3 full-fledged NXL events between now and then, it would financially strap some of these companies to try and have them come to all of them.
Gotcha.
But I mean, because they're all working from home too, right? The manufacturers aren't allowed to be working. I believe that's the rules, right? So, yeah.
I had heard through the grapevine GI had shut down manufacturing, and that's not from my friends at GI, so take that with a grain of salt. But I can't imagine there's a lot of reason to make paintballs right now.
Nope, not at all. Unless Billy wants to go shoot him in his backyard or something.
Right.
Yeah, it's tough. I know some fields are open, but obviously that's a rarity. Most fields are closed right now because of.
And I was actually calling around the other day to try and get some people to talk to about some stuff, and I ended up calling Tysick at his park, and then he rattles off a bunch of people that are at the park that I was actually trying to call. I was like, wow, it's a small world. Everybody's deciding to go out and play. But that's one of the things that's going to happen. One of the powers of tournament players that the industry doesn't give credit for, right? We are the people, or you guys are the people. I always count myself in there, but we are the people that are going to be the first ones back out to play. We're not as concerned about any little bit of hiccup. We're going to go play, and we're passionate about it. And team practices are going to happen whether it rains or nothing. So whereas groups may back off as soon as the weather goes off, or we have a little rumor of a pandemic, but you guys are dying to get back out there, right? So that's a plus. Yeah. So.
Yeah,
we will be the first people shooting paintballs again.
I know, and I remember shooting paintballs against you last year at ICC.
Yep. I love that stuff for sure.
When was the last time you got to play? Was it at ICC or?
What month was ICC? August. I played D-Day 2, which whatever, Invasion of Normandy up at Skirmish. But yeah, it was probably the ICC.
Right on. So
I actually hurt my shoulder there.
Oh, God.
Diving into the snake.
Yep. It's the damage of being old, man. It just doesn't stay the same. Yeah, my goggles came off in one of those when I actually hurt my shoulder, and they called me out, and I was like, "The hell, that's a gay rule." And they're like, "It's your rule," and I'm like, "All right, whatever." I didn't think you'd be called after having your goggles fall off. I put them right back on.
This still works.
This still works, yeah.
Right on.
No, I like playing. I still like playing. I mean, it's one of the challenges of the job that I got into the job because I love paintball, and then one of the side effects is you just don't get to play that much. I still wanted to sneak on that field in Florida, so I put a lot of time into that Woods field, which everybody bitched about. But I mean, there's literally a trench that runs. No, I'm talking about the other field. There's a trench that runs from one end to the other field, right? I so wanted to play that, and Dynasty asked me to play, and I was like, I'll just jump in on that field and blow some heads off, and then act like I wasn't there.
Speaking of the Woods field out there, we obviously had seen the progression from last year to this year, and it was a noticeable difference for sure, like just how it kind of had been worn in a little bit more. But I didn't see any snakes.
Since
But
when?
we saw
I
snakes
saw
at the
snakes.
last event. At the,
Yep.
at the last one, and I also heard that might have gotten bit by a snake. not
So
too
yeah,
long
in
ago.
Prague, I went off on a little side trip in Prague and got bit by a European viper, which is the only poisonous snake in the Czech Republic, and I managed to get bit by it. So had to go to the emergency room, had to hike out. Took about 3 hours probably from start to finish. Had to drive a stick through those back roads trying to find a hospital. Their hospitals are interesting. And yeah, went in there and the guy's like Googling stuff about the snake, which wasn't
Oh
exactly,
gosh.
yeah.
You were telling
So
him
yeah,
stuff in a different language.
yeah, and it was there's obviously a language thing, and the girl like checked me in. She could have worked at a Hooters. She's wearing like shorts and a t-shirt, and I'm like, do y'all not have like outfits or something? Like it was weird. But then the bill, so in the United States, if you get bit by a snake, it would have probably been $15,000. So I was like already planning my like escape routes on how to get out, and we get there, and it was like $47 for everything, for the emergency room visit, for the medicine, for everything, $47.
Whoa.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So
if you're gonna
What
get
did
bit
they
by a
actually have
snake,
to
go
do?
to check.
what's that?
What did they actually have to do? Just
Actually nothing. They just kept me there for a while. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they gave me an IV. They did a bunch of stuff like that,
Yeah.
but they didn't give me anti-venom. So
everything
should have
was
sent
all
you the
good
picture
though.
of the arm. But yeah, I catch snakes. I've done that my whole life. Everybody thinks it's a little weird, but yeah, I catch snakes. So used to
I
catch snakes. Now that
actually-
I've been bit, I'm gonna slow down.
I was on your Facebook page earlier, and it looked like you have a bunch of photos of some animals that you took the
Yeah,
photos, or
yeah. I mean, I guess if you're looking at the pictures I took, like it was a lion, maybe a leopard, different snakes, some snakes in there.
definitely the
Yeah,
snake ones
Tiger
jumped
King.
out at me. I was like,
The tiger.
"Ooh."
I go to Africa. I go away every year for about 3 weeks in the off season to kind of like, and it's a funny thing, right? So all I talk about is paintball every day. Every person that I know is a paintball person. All of my friends from there you go. Yeah, that's a Mozambican spitting cobra right there. It's pretty good. And like if I go to a wedding, everybody at my table is going to be a paintball player. So all I do is talk paintball, and everybody's telling me what I got to do to fix. That's a black mamba. I'm rattling through the pictures there as you show them. And so I really would like some time away from that occasionally. And so I go to Africa, and my owners are really good about it. They don't try to bother me while we're there. And so I go over and try and get pictures of animals. I've been doing it since I was 17, so it's not just an NXL thing, but it's a way to get away from everything and come back refreshed. I think that's one of the reasons why I've been able to do this for so long. Because it's a little bit of stress having this job, right? Trying to be the guy, trying to do all this stuff. So, and someone's always got something to say or how you're screwing their lives up, right? So it's a good little break and gets me away from everything.
Well, I think some people don't know that, like, they think you're the NXL president. They don't know how you got started, that you had a store and a team and a pro team and you worked at Kingman and Spider, all these things. So why don't you tell like a little bit about how you got into paintball or how you got started?
So I've been playing probably since I was 17. So long ago now, I don't remember. So I started playing when I was 17, and back then, we played. The teams just played against the Rex people. There was no separation between renting a gun and being a walk-on and being on a team. And so we played against the team, and one of the teams was called Green Machine, which is a professional team at the time.
That's Brett's
And
team.
yeah, there you go. And we played against them, and we did some. It was me and a bunch of friends that I went to school with, and we just went out there and played, and we were a bunch of kids, right? So everybody's always looking, even today, right? You see a bunch of little fast kids playing. You're like, he might be able to go to the Snake Force. So they tried to pick me up to go to a trip to South Africa, which we've already specified. I really like to go to South Africa, get pictures of shit. And I just thought it was a little weird. So I said no. And then a couple of months later, I see him on the cover of APG winning a tournament in South Africa. So being a little arrogant, I was like, well, if we were good enough to make that team, why don't we just start our own team? And we started Bad Company at the time. So with my group of friends from high school, we started Team Bad Company, and I played with them all the way till potentially, that's 1987. That's a 15-man. Play with them till I'm going to say 2006.
Which one are you, Tom? Which guy are you?
I'm the one all the way on the left, aiming the gun at the photographer without a barrel condom. And that person I'm aiming at is Cleo, who's still taking pictures now. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, that's a 15-man in skirmish.
Wow.
That's sweet.
You want to talk about fun? Is freight training? Most people aren't even gonna know what freight training. We're just putting 15 guys on one wire on some big ass field in the woods and running down it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You didn't even send one guy to the other side just to.
Not even said. And this is an Aftershock story. It's a true Aftershock story. So we played. So Aftershock was better than us. They've always been better than us. And we had to play them. And I'm like, let's just take 10 dudes and run down one wire. And they still had all the old loggers and stuff back then. And so we had Titmans shooting liquid CO2, 4 million feet per second probably. This is there you go. Those are the Titmans. And we just ran 9 dudes down a wire, and backdoored them and blew them off the field and shot all of them like 100 times. They didn't really lose like that back in the day. So Rennick pulled me aside and was like, that was a great move. I'll give you credit for that. But if you do it again, we're beating your entire team to the ground. And I was like, duly noted. Glad we got it. Look, I'm wearing an OBR shirt right there. Way to go, Steve Pisick. I think I'm reffing the Amateur Open right there at that picture. That would be my guess. I still have that JT hat. You see that hat? Go back to that hat. So John Gregory, I just ran into John Gregory at Living Legends 2 years ago, I think, 2 years ago, and he gave me that hat again, a brand new version of it. So I have it in my office at home. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Nice.
That's cool.
John Gregory created JT, for those of you who don't know.
Right.
So I played for Bad Company forever. I mean, I played, and then somewhere in that process, I got elected president of the NPPL, which was the first of many coups by the pro teams against the promoters. So I was part of that coup at the time, and then a year later, they elected me president. So Billy and Adam from Smart Parts, Dave from Dye, Rennick from Bad Boys Toys. He had Shock Tech at the time. The Master, all the teams from back in the day. I got elected president somehow, and so I was president of the NPPL until 2002, which was a free, non-paying position, and I was the liaison between the teams and the promoters, the guys that ran the tournaments.
How did that end?
So badly. Well, I mean, it's tough, right? Because anybody ever read the book Animal Farm? That's what happens, right? So the players want to take over the league because they think they can run it better. And then we start to run it as players, and we realize that there's more to it than we think. So then we end up, the promoters of the time, and I think it was Dave Youngblood, Jerry Braun, the Gardeners, Rennick, and one other person. I don't know who the other person was at this time. But they were running the events. They took all that cost on and did all that work and all that blood, sweat, and tears and to build this league up for the players. And then at some point in time, they stopped becoming players. They started to be promoters, right? So there's that change that happens. And then, so I started asking them for more stuff. So Gettysburg, which was the Gardeners event, was a horrible event, right? It was horrible. There was one bathroom, the air compressor went down. It was dismal, right? So the teams are coming to me and complaining to me as their liaison. So I came up with a strategy. What?
I said we won that event, so I was happy.
There you go. Well, winning fixes everything, but luckily everybody can't win. I'll add a bunch more divisions to see if we can't make sure everybody wins, but yeah, it's still not likely. And so I came up with a bunch of systems like that. I was going to say, like, you needed 10 restrooms for every 100 teams or whatever the rules were, and they were not having it. And when I think back, I didn't realize at the time, but they thought I was stealing the league from them. They thought I was going to give it to everybody. Going to give it to WDP, which is one of the ones because they were my sponsor, or Gino, who I've always had a good relationship with. So they were worried I was going to take away something they had worked so hard to build to go do. And I'm going to give you an inside Lane story. So Lane was actually at the time either and I'm going to get in trouble for being wrong here, but probably he was either the pro team liaison or the amateur team liaison. And so he worked for us. It was me, Chuck Hench was like my vice president, and Lane was this advisor guy, and Paul Adler's. And we came up with a plan on how we were going to move forward. And the next day, he switched sides of the table and sat on their side of the table, got hired by them in the middle of the night. So that was a challenge for me because he kind of knew what we were going to do. So he actually started working for the PSP that day. The day that I pitched this proposal, he went to work for the PSP. So that was 2001, I'm guessing. So yeah, actually, Tim Montressor just texted me a picture of a paint magazine where Lane had been put in the Gettysburg meeting to ask for me to get voted down as being president. And so I basically won the crowd and was like, all right, does anybody want me not to be president? And no one voted. And I was like, well, Lane, you got to at least raise your hand. And then he raised his hand as the one person to vote me out of being president. And went on. So it's me and Lane been having fun since the dawn of time.
Would you consider him your mortal enemy?
No. I probably talk to Lane once a month. He's hilarious. There's no one I'd rather call than Lane.
Yeah, he's a good storyteller.
Definitely a good storyteller. I mean, we definitely don't always agree, right? But it's we've both been doing the same thing since the dawn of time, and so it's the same thing. And I will say, all those groups of people that I've worked with, they never once don't have paintball as their best interest, right? We may not end up doing it the right way, or they may not, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I don't always see eye to eye with everybody, but there's none of those people that I felt weren't trying to do what they thought was best for paintball. But Jerry Braun, like, I've argued with Jerry Braun my whole life, right? He's probably closer to my nemesis. And because we have a completely different opinion on a lot of stuff, but he still wants to do what's right for paintball. He just has a different opinion about it than I do. So you can't say anything bad about him. You can just say that you don't think the same way on how to move forward. So
yeah, I think sometimes people lose sight of that so many of these people that are pitted against each other as enemies, whether it's GI or Vulcan or NXL and for the player league, all this stuff. It's like, at the end of the day, everyone's looking out for the best interest of paintball. You obviously have to do that for your business to succeed. And I don't think people always give you guys that credit, that at the end of the day, you want your business to be successful and you want paintball to be successful as well.
Well, I mean, because that is the business, right? I get that all the time. People are like, if you wanted paintball to grow, and they usually follow that by me spending money on something. It's like, of course I want paintball to grow. Everyone I know, every one of my friends, every person that's going to be at my wedding is going to be a paintball person. So of course I want them to do well, right? I want paintball business to flourish. I want the teams to flourish. I'm very excited when you guys play well. You know what I mean? I go to the pits and kind of check on everybody and make sure stuff's going. I'm still excited about the game, right? At all levels. So
you're in Pittsburgh. Lane raised his hand. What's next? So you stay on?
Yeah, I end up staying on, but it's kind of, my real friends were Lane and Dave and Rennick and the Gardners, right? They were the ones that kind of elected me in that position to begin with. So I kind of phased out, and really Chuck and them were also trying to get me out of the NPPL. So I just kind of retired in 2002. And that's the year that we had to split. So 2001, the beginning of 2002, the end of 2001, I kind of stepped down, got ousted out of the NPPL, and then the PSP created their own company during that little pitch for me, because there used to be 5 independent promoters, and so they blended together to be one organization, Paintball Sports Promotions, to promote events that were ran by the NPPL. But then they just went off on their own, and the NPPL and them split to kind of go do their own thing, and that was the big 2003 split, which we probably still haven't recovered from as an industry, because everybody spent so much money trying to fight that war, whether it was the legal battles between WDP and Smart Parts, or the war between the PSP and the NPPL. It was, full-blown battle. And the industry had to go to like 12 events, and sponsorship with $100,000 a league. And so, if you wanted to be, like, right now, our highest sponsorship level is, I'm not even going to say the number, but a lot less than it used to be. And there's only one league. Back then there was 2 leagues, and it was about 4 times as much for each league. So it was expensive to be in the industry back then.
Yeah, and there was different formats being played at different leagues. So
yeah, the NPPL was 7-man. Yeah, so a lot of this I just assume everybody knows. But yeah, the NPPL went to 7-man, and then the PSP went. They played Xball on the pro level. They had an open division of pro level, and then they still had 10-man. 10-man was still strong. It just kind of phased out over a couple of years. Everybody thinks 10-man ended in 2003, but they still played 10-man for a while. Once again, I'll say still probably my favorite format.
Agreed. So you heard it here first, guys.
We had a question.
ICPL's adding another 2 or 3 events this year.
Good.
I would
Breaking
love
news.
that. 10-man is the best. The absolute
Speaking
best.
of, I got a little care package from Trav.
Get out of here.
The rings.
You dirty dog. Wow.
I love the rings. I think they're really cool.
Yeah, rings.
Yeah, well done with that. I thought
Thank
it was cool you guys switched up the medals this year at NXL too. It's nice just to see some refreshed. You guys have done that a couple times now. So it's cool, you know, to just see that there's people that are paying attention to that type of stuff. And I know that the players appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Our players are, I mean, they're pretty nice. Everybody thinks I get a lot of grief all the time, but at the events, everybody's really pretty nice. I mean, we all want the same thing. So, it's a funny story about the trash. So my dad manages the trash at the events. So when we did the PSP, he also managed the trash for the events. And he was pretty much convinced that the players were heathens at this point in time. And when we started the NXL, me and him were arguing about like how much he was getting done or whatever. And he was like, I said, have you ever asked him just to put the boxes away? And he's like, there's no freaking way they're going to do that. And so we came up with that little idea of the boxes, and I walked through the pits and we talked to the teams, and everybody's like, no problem. And everybody started cutting up the boxes, and it's been like a whole different level. You know what I mean? I try to think of it as a partnership, and I know it's going to sound cliche and I'm like some corporate guy, but it really is a partnership between us and the players, right? Most of the grief that I get is from people online who either don't come to the events or stop coming to the events. You know, the former infamous player, not to be named. Yeah.
No one knows who you're talking about.
No one knows what I'm talking about. You know, that's where you get the grief from. It's not from the current people that are playing. So.
Yeah, it's real easy to be a keyboard warrior. I mean, it's a lot of people have an issue kind of being a man or a woman and really looking somebody in the face and voicing their concern and treating somebody with respect. It's easier to not do that on the internet.
For sure. And you know, in the end, they just, you know, a lot of times they just want someone else to pay for something that they think that they want, right? So that's the hard part, right? Like I'll give you the number one thing I get is, you know, if you want paintball to grow, you would make the grandstands free. And I'm like, well, if you want paintball to grow, why don't you just give someone $10 and let them go watch for free, right? It's a never ending. There's a cost to having free paintball, and I do agree. And we were gonna launch something at, and we still will launch something at the next full size event that we have, where we were gonna have half the seating was gonna be free at the events for the players. So on the pro field. So, but you know, it's just not as easy as just saying, you know, let's just give it away.
It's easy to have that opinion if you've never run a business and they don't see it from your side of it. It's like, hey, if the grandstands are packed out full on Sunday at $10 a ticket, I mean, it's a pro sport. Well,
and there's no bar in the world that wouldn't do better if beer was free, right? But that doesn't make it a viable business just because, you know what I mean? Hey, every day the beer's free in here and we packed all the time. We would just go out of business. Everybody would just go out of business.
And watching divisional paintball is free. And, you know, to your average consumer who's not a paintball person, you know, watching Division 1 or Division 4 is not really any different than watching pro.
Correct. Yep. And we will, if I see normal people, I don't mean paintball people aren't normal, but you know, a mom and a dad and some kids just walking through the park, I definitely give them free passes as much as I can. So
good, man.
My business card, that's a secret. My business card actually has a code on it that gets you free grandstand seats. So if you have a business card, you can use that occasionally.
So earlier you were talking NXL owners. I know the league has changed hands at some point. A lot of people have opinions about who owns the league. Could you tell everybody who actually owns the NXL?
Dave Baines, the Smiths, Randy and Ryan Smith from Houston Heat, the Baines from Impact, Bart from Impact, and is that everybody? Did I just go through everybody that fast?
4?
Yeah,
Dave, Bart,
and the Ryan Smiths, Randy and Ryan Smith. So GI was an initial owner; they were an initial investor, and just wanted to separate the two. You know what I mean? We were like double tapping them. They're GI, so it made sense a little bit.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to ask that question, because I know that people do kind of have that opinion, and now certainly that's a false opinion. And I don't know.
And we've never had that relationship. I mean, the owners, and even when Rich, I mean, they're all professionals, right? They know what's going on. We argue. I mean, we argue like tooth and nail. But in the end, it's my decision to run the NXL the way we do it, and so they. You know what I mean? Because they can't make the decisions because they're on teams or whatever, and they get that. So it's always kind of a weird conflict of interest. But they're really good about it. You know what I mean? Bart is not afraid to wear me out. You know what I mean? And burn me to the ground. But he never once says, I own it, do it my way. He's never once even come close to that. So, I mean, I guess if I kept doing stuff and screwing things up more than I already do, they would probably get rid of me. But at that point, you know what I mean? But they go by what we say. They didn't like, you know what I mean? Well, I'm never going to get into it, but yeah, you know, they let me do the decisions.
I don't like it when people mention Bart or Randy's ownership in the league as a potential reason for their success. I think it takes a lot away from the players and the organizations that they put together. You know, they obviously pour a lot of resources into the league and also their own teams. So
no one that didn't play paintball and loved paintball wouldn't spend the kind of money they do to make sure it's good. And yeah, I feel bad for them all the time, right? Because they are the most excited, right? They're the ones that want to do stuff for paintball, right? They're the ones that do that. And I'm happy they have the means to do that. And I'm happy they have the passion to do it. And yeah, I get mad when people say stupid stuff about them. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, it's frustrating for sure because they really do want the best for paintball.
I don't know Randy or Bart that well, but I'm assuming they're both astute businessmen, and I'm assuming they didn't invest in paintball for ROI.
They did not. I hope to God not, or I would be getting fired. No, I mean, obviously they want it to be a viable business as well because they don't want to have to keep dumping money into it. But they're not doing it because they'd have been better off investing in anything. A Domino's pizza would be way better than us. So they're doing it for the love of the game, and all we can do is appreciate what they've done.
Yeah,
certainly.
That's cool. Very
Awesome.
Cool. So
we had a question.
Okay. Go ahead.
Most memorable moment at an event, Tom?
Wow. You mean when I ran or when I played? What's the? Give me some stuff there.
Your call.
That's what the question was. Open.
You know, I would say. Like my happiest moment, like the World Cup this year at World Cup, like I was truly proud of what we did there, right? We had a huge amount of teams and I felt like the sport was really professional. And I had an outside sponsor guy come on board and that didn't end up working out before everybody asked me bringing that up. And he was just like, there's nothing you've said to me leading up to this event that led me to believe that the event was this big. Nothing. And I was like, wow, maybe I'm underselling stuff because I don't really I'm not that guy that's kind of like over the top, right? I'm trying to think of a person, but yeah, I'm not that guy. I'm not the guy that builds up something. And so I try and keep it to the basics. You know, I'm at 4,000 people. They're all here playing paintball. Let's come on out and check it out or whatever. And so I was pretty proud of that. You know what I mean? And if I took Joe from Valken into the VIP at that event, and just to kind of go through what was going on, and it was just people were there to watch competition. They weren't there because, they're paintball fans, and it was packed, and it was cool. And then there was a kid next to us, and he was like, so Joe was like, and he had bought some stuff. And so the Joe was like, are you local? And the guy's like, well, I mean, if you count 6 hours local, I drove in to buy this stuff and watch the finals, So here I am with, one of my sponsors and a friend of mine, and we're in the VIP, and it's jam-packed, and there's a great game going on. And,
yeah,
we did it.
It's pretty cool.
So it was cool, yeah. So I'd say World Cup is probably my coolest.
Good deal. Somebody's asking about UWL. What made you start that up? And is that I think we sort of touched on, the old school 10-man woods and all that, but not everybody knows.
I started the UWL in 2009, probably a little ahead of the curve there on the 10-man thing. But I found it hard to believe that anybody is having more fun than we had when we played, right? So I grew up in that golden era, right, where we were coming out of the woods or playing in the woods, and there was the push things, and there was Paint Magazine, APG, and we were getting our first, paintball stars like Crystal Soya and all that stuff. So I grew up in that era, and it was, it was a way of life for us. It was everything. And I find it hard to believe you guys are having more fun than we did. And now when you see people at the ICPL or the ICC, you can see that it is a lot of fun to play that format. And I ended up quitting because we'll blame it on Rich Telford. But so I played a back right because I don't even shoot left-handed. So I always had to play a back right. No need to shoot left. So I find myself, whether I was in Portugal playing the Millennium or at the World Cup playing the NPPL, I was running to a round tube in the back, shooting at Rich Telford. And the only reason I knew he was out because his hand would come out, and it could have been because I shot him or because JC put 3 in the back of his neck. I have no idea. I just called the company and move on, And I did the same thing over and over again, and the NPPL went to race to 5 or something stupid. And so I'm like running up a slight incline versus Rich Telford, and it just got monotonous. So I just kind of realized that maybe that there was other people like me that might want to play 10-man and play in the woods. And then initially I tried a mechanical system where people were using automags and autocockers. We had the daggers come out, which is Matty Marshall's team, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember those.
I'm
days.
the heavy gunner if we do UWR.
The heavy gunner, yeah. Everybody wants to be the heavy gunner.
I've read the rule book. I'll be the sniper too if you want. I play multiple roles, but I'm claiming heavy gunner right now.
Yeah, so I was trying to blend like I really didn't believe, and I missed the mark on the fact that how many tournament guys would enjoy to play it. And so I was kind of catering the tournament series to scenario guys and guys that wanted to play something a little bit more competitive than what they've been playing. But then ended up what happened was just a bunch of tournament guys came out and played and kind of changed the whole business model. It's the true story. So I went out with all the scenario teams in California because I lived in California at the time. I took about 12 teams to dinner, and I asked them what was going on, explained the format and all this stuff. And then I told them Bob Long was going to come down and play a team, put in a team. And I said, do you want me to have more than one division for this team? And they were like, we're not afraid of the pros. Those guys aren't going to know where to hide. They're not going to know anything. And literally they convinced me. They were so overwhelming confident that the pro teams were going to get destroyed in the woods that I left starting to think that I was wrong and that Bob might have some trouble. So the games were an hour long initially, maybe 40 minutes, something ridiculous. Bob won the first game against one of those teams at that dinner in 35 seconds. And I'm like, and Bob's looking at me, he's like, what do I do now? And I was like, I don't know. I didn't expect this big-ass field to be over in 35 seconds. And I walked by the scenario team, and I was like, so how did that one division thing work out for you? Like, you guys drove me to do this, and now here we are. But the negative of that was those guys realized they weren't that good, and we lost a lot of those teams. So you
and I were talking about this actually in person at one point about how you didn't want the ICPL to become the NXL, and you were trying to be really careful of, basically having full pro teams playing the ICPL and eliminating a customer base and stuff. And we were kind of chatting about how, because of that, what you learned then, how much you developed the ICPL to be something where pros can play, but it's still a non-pro team could be very competitive as well.
Yeah, and actually when we had Dave Baines' team, what was it? I can't remember the team name. Cap Factory, right? I got so much grief online about like how stacked that roster was and all that stuff. And I don't know if they won a point. They might not even shot a person that first tournament. So that was good for me. But yeah, I mean, it's hard, like I want to play paintball and I want to feel competitive, right? And so I don't want to go up against a guy that's been playing every weekend and getting paid to play. It's kind of an unfair thing. I don't need to fight Mike Tyson a bunch of times to realize he's better than me, right? So at some point in time, and I don't need to bet him $1,000 every time to do it. So I'm just going to keep putting that up and then get knocked out and then put it back up and get it. I'm dumb, but I ain't that dumb. So at some point in time, I want to feel competitive. So I'm going to go fight in the kindergarten or something. But I want to play. I want to play and be competitive, and I want to play with my old guys and not feel like I got to fly in Rainey from X Factor in order to be competitive. So
I like how the amateur teams still get to play the pro teams at the ICPL events. And to your point, you don't want to have all those guys just get ran through really quick and not want to play anymore. But I've been saying that the woods ball side and the hybrid field and stuff like that, those fields are way different than anything that we're used to. And as an Xball team, and playing with 10 guys is so different that I don't think it's as easy as just grabbing a whole Xball team and going out there and being able to just smash anybody you play. It's definitely a whole different game. And when you put in 3 guys and go to make that move, you forgot about the 4th and 5th dude that could still be looking at you. And
or the ninja in the ditch. But the real challenge isn't the true Xball team that comes to play. The real challenge is a team like yours, right? You take someone like Travis that played back in the day, right? And knew all those 10-man skills and has all that still in the back of his mind. And then he gives you some soldiers like you guys to send to their deaths. That's the dangerous part. You're right. I think a true Xball team come into play wouldn't do that well in the woods. I mean, they're going to do fine on Hyperball. But when you mix that team with some older knowledge That's when you become. I mean, Aftershock, right? So the Aftershock team that won the last series or whatever, and then you guys, right? I mean, it's obvious that that mix of old school and new school is the winning recipe for the Woods. And just being good at paintball is just being good at paintball.
Yeah, and I think honestly, back in the day when we were 10-man teams, obviously your 10-man team was like 15 dudes, right? Because you all couldn't get together at the same time. So you always had to have some extra dudes. But I think 10-man was inherently really good at bringing up younger players because, you know, as you got better and more valuable on the field, you sort of moved from the front guy to the mid guy to the back guy or whatever. But you always needed those new young kids to go run to their death at the 50s. And we still tried stuff throughout the years at 10-man. We still always tried to take, you know, their side of the field on the break, or we do some goofy stuff. So I think that 10-man actually brought people through the system a little bit easier than today's current rosters. I mean, you've seen guys, the same guys for the past 15 years on the same teams. So
yeah, and you had more of that mentor relationship with your back guy, right? So you think about all the traditional back guys. They were knowledgeable in the game, and they weren't going to be able to make the moves themselves. So it wasn't like, get out of my way, kid, I'll go do this for you. He had to talk you through how to play that front bunker because he wasn't going to be able to get up, you know what I mean? I love Todd Adams to the death. I've never seen him lay down, right? I don't know if he does lay down. So he's going to take his snake guy and tell him what he needed to do in that situation and walk him through it, right?
It was easier to take risks, too, because when you did send that, yeah, and so the guy died. So what? You still got 9 guys.
Still got 9 more guys, yeah.
So unless Billy dies and gets a gross major, and then you lose 4 guys.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, we try to do that occasionally.
But if you have Lasoya, then it's no problem.
Corner.
Then you have Lasoya. Lasoya looks the exact same. It is like I'm watching a push video on slow-mo. It's the exact same moves. I mean, it's the exact same everything. He just does it a little slower. And it still works, so I give him full points on that.
We brought Lasoya in last Friday, and it was like a hand grenade into the show. He just came in F-bombing and going crazy. And
I can only imagine what he's going to say.
I wasn't sure how long he was going to make it because the first thing he did was pour out his drink when he got on the camera, and I'm like...
right on the keyboard.
Yeah.
Like, where did it go? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Right on. So just to bring everything back in real quick, because I know we started a story and we got cut off, but
sorry.
So when you left, you said you left the NPPL. Obviously, then you went into UWL at some point.
Yeah, in the middle of it, I worked for Kingman. I went to go work for Spider Kingman, and I worked there for 7 years, something like that. I was their head of sales for a while. Yeah, it was fun. It was a neat job. Huh?
Let's say shout out Adam Johnson.
Asian Michael Jackson. Arthur Chang, Tina Chang. I mean, they were both really nice to me, and they were good for the sport back in the day. Yeah, we were sponsored by Kingman, and I worked at Kingman. It was a good system.
It's a good move.
Yeah, they were one of the. We were using. Those guns are $100. So that's World Cup. I'm gonna say 2002. So we came in the top 4 there, and the guns were under $100.
I got mine at Sports Authority for $79.
There you go. See, you could have joined the team right then. Would have saved me $79 for picking you up. Yeah. Now, at some point in time, we did slide Intimidators into them, but not in 2002. So.
And at that point, while you were running the team still, you're working at Kingman. Then you started UWL. All in that, you did it all.
Yeah, I did it all right about that same time. Actually, I'd stopped the team probably by the time the UWL started, for sure. But we were still playing, so I would play so even when I did the UWL, we went and played the UWL in the UK, and we beat Leeds there. It's one of my favorite stories, beat Leeds at the UWL to win the European Championship. So we would still get together with my old guys and occasionally play 10-man format. But yeah, so it was an interesting time. And I was the ultimate ref for the NPPL. So I was Jason Drozen's job for the NPPL. So
how did you get back into the NXL? That's what I'm trying to figure out, is how did it come full circle? So you have UWL.
At some point, so when I stopped doing when I stopped being president of the NPPL, I still played at the NPPL, and I was still obviously a vocal person in the industry on the team side. So we had, I believe, I mean, for a long time, the Jed under the WDP group, they still talk to the teams a lot, and I was still involved in those conversations. And somehow through that process, I ended up being the ultimate referee for the NPPL at that time. And the NPPL is crazy, right? You got Frank Connell, right? You got all these people that have been crazy their entire lives, and now they're running a league, and they just come up with crazy stuff, in my opinion. The players are literally running the whole league. And Bart's part of that, right? There's a whole bunch of teams that are running, and I just work there. And it was a great situation. Frank Connell, literally, I'm using Frank Connell because throw him under the bus. Like, I'm the ultimate. And he goes and throws a bunch of chairs. And I'm like, if you throw one more chair, I'm going to throw you out. And he's like, I own the league. You can't throw me out. And he threw the chair. And I said, you're thrown out. And he's like, really? I'm like, what more do you want me to do? I warned you. And then you did it right in front of everybody after I told you not. Yes, you can't play anymore. And his team was so happy. But it's hard to have 20 owners and try and have a league under that type of system. But anyhow, so I was good friends with Billy and Lane, and they had talked to me about coming over. And at that point in time, I really felt paintball needed just one league. I felt like we were just killing ourselves trying to win that war. So I came to work for the PSP, and I was officially there. I was the affiliate manager, I believe, is what my exact title was. But I became involved in a lot of the day-to-day operations with Lane, and Camille worked there at the time, and Dave and Chris Rail. So that was pretty much the company at that point in time. And so I ended up leaving there in 2015, and I was frustrated about some stuff that we were doing. Whatever, that's the politics side of it, right? I didn't feel comfortable moving down the path they were moving, and I was going to be the face anyhow, trying to move down that path, and I didn't want to be the guy that had to do that. Leave it at that. But so I was going to go and focus on the UWL. I felt like that was a viable business move, and Bart and Lane had been talking about maybe buying the PSP from the group that currently owned it, and they ended up saying, hey, would you run a league if we helped it? And I was like, sure. And so that's how I got started with the NXL. Right and my first call was to who? Camille.
We know her.
Strange days.
Strange couple good days. Questions in here for you, Tom. What? They're light. They're light. What are your thoughts and or any planning or internal discussions you guys have had on blind layouts?
I personally love blind layouts. I'm dying to do blind layouts. So if you want to do a blind layout, just start posting that everywhere on Facebook so I can get away with it.
We broke the news here first.
The challenges with the blind layout is what would happen to the fields once again. Like and a lot of this is unforeseen consequences of something that has been done. And Lane put it right. It's like all the field owners want to blame him for ruining paintball or like killing paintball when he got rid of the blind layouts, but no one ever thanked him for saving him when he was doing the layouts, right? So it's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. But some of the fields have created a business model around having these layouts out, and all the teams practice, and there's 2 weekends. And it would require an evolution of that. If we didn't release the layouts, they would have to find a way to get teams to practice again and schedule that. And that may be something that we have to do, because I do think I personally don't like everybody playing the layouts. It creates all those bounce shot situations and gets rid of that whole excitement of the first couple games of everybody knowing what's going to do. I mean, I could go, and if Callie keeps moving into the snake from the one launch point, and if I watch that enough, at some point in time I'm going to figure out a way to try and stop him. Not saying I would succeed, but at least I would know how. Whereas when you have to walk the fields and you get to figure it out, it creates some different opportunities. And I was captain of Bad Company for years, and we probably weren't that good, but we were willing to take a lot of risks on the break and come up with some good game plans, and I felt like that helped carry us through. So I have a personal desire to kind of see that aspect. And I think you guys won the first event where there was no layout, right? Won Texas when the PSP did the no layout thing. Yeah. It would definitely change the dynamic of tournament paintball, and it would also be more affordable for our teams to not have to, both time-wise and money-wise, not those 2 weekends before the tournament have to grind it out just to learn a layout.
Well, I know the general kind of common public opinion is, well, what about the fields? And I believe, one of your confidants, Dave Painter, had actually mentioned publicly a couple times that he believes that it could actually reduce the log jam that exists on those 2 weekends prior to NXL tournaments, where fields are having trouble with the amount that they're trying to deal with in terms of business. And it would probably be easier to spread that out over the 6 or so weeks between events.
Yeah, we would, and it is something we are thinking about. We would just try and write up a plan to kind of help fields through that and come up with a system of trying to still schedule practices, right? Because we still practiced, right? Everybody still practiced in the era of no layouts. The
You played
NPPL,
more. You really played more.
yeah, we played every weekend, right? We didn't
Right.
wait till the 2 weekends. So, yeah, that is something I would like to see, but
And then it's like if one team has a wedding going on with one of their guys or something, it doesn't, totally throw a wrench in the whole tournament.
well, it also means that I eat up, like, just think about it from the rest of the paintball world. So the NXL eats up 5 times 3, right? We eat up
Yep.
15 weekends, and we strategically place those weekends into where they're non-holidays and non-crucial times. So I'm really eating up probably 50% of the potential weekends that you can play paintball with our stuff, which means big games and other smaller tournament series and other, like an ICC event. Like, we have to work hand in hand to make sure that we don't step on other people's toes. And even then, we still do step on people's toes. So going to 5 events that had to be a must attend for NXL players would definitely lighten that load a little bit on the industry and on our teams. So
Yeah,
100%.
that's certainly a big upside.
yeah.
Another question I saw asked a couple of times was about the possibility of an all-star game.
I don't know what the joy of an all-star game is. So, you know what I mean? Like, no one watches the regular, no one watches the all-star game in baseball. No one watches the,
NFL.
I shouldn't
or
say
the-
no one. There's less people that watch that game, right? That's why they put it on the off weekend. Go ahead. I thought just watching Infamous play was an all-star game, right? You know what I mean? All the top teams are the who's who of paintball, right? So that is our all-star game. But if people want an all-star game, we'll give it to them. Just get enough people to send me a message saying, let's do a goddamn all-star game. We'll do one.
I think it was just cool to see different players from different teams come together. And then also that there's not really a whole lot on the line. So it's just kind of like you have fun with it and you see a little bit, crazier moves happening and a little bit more excitement.
So, yeah, I think it's great for the 10 people that get picked for the Eastern team and the Western team, right? But then I got to build that thing. I got to facilitate all that. So.
Yeah, it could be cool. People probably don't realize how tight the schedule is. Maybe they do now after we had to play some prelim games on Sunday in
the
Vegas.
dark.
But right,
Yeah.
but maybe Thursday afternoons an option, and maybe that adds some content for Go Sports or something that would be interesting for them. And,
yeah, we're interested. I know Bart loves the All-Star game for whatever reason. He's always asking about the All-Star game.
well, there you go,
I kinda
people. Talk to Bart.
Talk to Bart. Get Bart to put it in my ear all the time.
We could do it on the 10-man field.
We could do a 10-man All-Star game. There you go. All at one time. Just invite just the Savages.
That's right.
I also like the one-on-one tournament that they had overseas at the Millennium events. I thought it was just cool to, get everybody in the grandstands, pack it out, and start getting a little rowdy.
Yeah, you guys don't seem to like to play the one-on-ones, though.
It is hard to get guys to get, put their reputation or whatever out there on the line, but still some guys that are all about it, they're all about it. They're going to be out there. You saw Oliver Lang out there all the time, constantly, up in the
You're going to bring him back from Tibet or wherever he's at to try and get him to do the one-on-ones?
So one of my firm teammates, and one of Callie's former teammates, Warren Pitterson, actually won one of those one-on-one tournaments. Definitely an unknown pro player, had just come out of playing divisionals. I think they were in semi-pro at the time, and he beat Nick LaValle in the finals. And it's I think that's an amazing
instantly
story.
Famous.
Exactly, yeah. All of a sudden, here's this dude from England who nobody knew about, and boom, one-on-one champ.
So I think smaller sizes are easier to run and they're easier to find, right? But then they lack that. We go back to why we all like 10-man, right? Because it's so much a team sport, right? Anybody can win a game one-on-one, right? Just look at the 2v2 thing, which was my pet project that got destroyed. we put up $50,000. It's the biggest prize package. You guys could win all year and not win $50,000, right? And we gave it to 2 guys, and almost no one signed up for it because no one wants to go play 2v2 versus another 2 guys because it's going to come down to them winning their battle. And I guess either they didn't have the confidence or what. I don't know. It's still beyond me. I was begging teams to play at World Cup. It was like $150 to play, and you could win $50,000.
That's crazy.
Sign me up.
So you would say that, but no one signed up.
Yeah.
No one signed up. So
we'll market it a little bit harder.
Yeah, we try. Yeah, that's one. I mean, in the early days, we weren't as good at marketing. We're slowly getting there, but yeah.
I remember watching the 2v2 tournament at Cup. Obviously, the grandstands at Cup are going to be packed towards the finals no matter what. But it was exciting to see some of those younger guys out there playing.
Yeah, and so that's something to remember, right? So our business model in tournament paintball is getting people actually to pay an entrance fee to play it, right? It's not how fun it is to watch. So we constantly are trying to design our formats around something that's going to be fun to watch for the non-existent consumer that's paying to watch us, right? Yep. We have to constantly focus on making sure the game is fun and that the tournament is fun for the participants because they're the ones who are funding everything. So, the NBA is different, right? They have to do stuff to put on a spectacle because they're not paying to play. You guys are paying to play. So I have to I always keep that in the back of my mind that it's the players first, right? The teams first. And that's, once again, going to sound like a cliche, but it's the spectators are, if you guys are having a good time and it's a good team game, then the spectators will come. But I shouldn't put too much emphasis on something that's fun to watch because that might not be fun to play.
Right on.
So
obviously we're getting close to the end here. We fielded a bunch of questions. I had a bunch of questions. Is there anything that, Tom, you want to talk about that we haven't talked about? I mean, this is got a bunch of people watching now, so.
I'm going to dwell on that format thing. I mean, the number one suggestion I get is a different format, right? So if you liked 10-man, you always roll me about 10-man. If you like 15 balls a second, traditional Xball, you like that, right? And you're always on me about that. And that's literally all I get inundated with is format questions. And I'm out of the realization now, and that's you got those pictures from my post, like it's not necessarily about the format. We're always going to talk about that, but there's not some holy grail and a tweak in the format that's going to make paintball more appealing to the masses. Paintball is fun. It's expensive, but it's fun. And most of the fun comes from the fact that you're playing with your friends and you're trying to build a team. You're trying to beat the other guy doing the same thing. And that's what we need to focus on and make sure everybody's having a good time. We've really tried to. So I always felt like and this is my comparison to the PSP and the MPPL. The PSP was the place that had good food, and this might even be Lane's. I might be stealing this from Lane. But the PSP is the place that had good food, but was a shitty-looking establishment. And the MPPL was the place that looked really good but had shitty food. No offense to anybody who ran all those organizations. I am trying to blend those two together, right? Because the PSP had it right on one level, right? It's got to be fun for the players. It's got to be what the players want. But at the same point in time, you got to look professional and you got to bring that extra look in, right? And so we just try and blend those two and make sure everybody has a good time and it works out. And paintball is, everybody's always like, paintball died when this happened, this happened, this happened. I'm like, more people played tournament paintball last year than ever before. So if you're don't send me a message with don't kill paintball, do this. Say, this is how we can grow it even further. But, we had, like I said, we had I don't know how many teams will work out. Let's call it 500. It's still huge compared to anything we've ever had before in the history of paintball, right? Even Tim was saying something about it the other day. The Amateur Open had like 75 teams back in the day, and that's one of the iconic events from back in the day. It only had 75 teams.
Yep.
Like, we would be very mad if we ran a national tournament that had 75 teams now.
Yeah, that World Cup was the biggest event there ever was, correct?
As far as I'm concerned, yeah. I mean, I could be wrong, right? There might have been a big game or something that was bigger, but from the numbers that we have, it was by far the biggest event ever. And it felt it, right? It felt like a big event. So
yeah, it was good. Good job.
Thank you.
All right, last question. Woods ball, hyper ball, air ball, or mounds?
What is the question?
That's it. Last question. You as a Tom Cole, if you could play one of those fields, what are you going for?
Well, I mean, if I'm personally going to play, I'm going to play in the woods because I don't want y'all to be able to run me down. But from an overall compassing thing, I think a Mounds hybrid is probably the coolest field, both from watching, playing, and the whole deal. I call this airball thing, right, this airball fad, it's like one of the biggest bait and switches in history, right? So we have a very elite group of people, me and Travis in that time era, right, that we want everybody to watch us see what we do because we think we're good at it. But everybody that wants to play paintball wants to go run around and play Army in the woods. So we somehow keep trying to convince everyone that this is the cooler form of paintball. If we could have continued with the cool factor that we bring with the airball and the team factor and that whole like match style of play, if we could have come up with something that was a little more Call of Duty-ish, I think we would have a home run. But I'm not quite there yet. But that's my personal, not necessarily Tom Cole NXL. That's Tom Cole paintball guy. I think the general consumer would watch two teams, a black versus green, Navy SEALs versus the Marines, Russians versus the Americans, whatever. We would understand that a lot quicker. And to us and the ICC and the ICPL prove it's just as fun to run around those mounds and shoot at each other as it is on an airball field. And I just think that's a more blending of everyone. I mean, how many times do you guys talk to someone about tournament paintball and they're like, oh, so you guys run around the woods? And you're like, no. We do the cool stuff. Where we got it. You know, I mean, you have to physically take the time to explain to them what you do. And you wouldn't have to do that in any other sport, right? If you say I play professional football, they're going to know what you do. It's the exact same thing they play when they go out and play for the weekend, right? So that's kind of where I'm at with that. But that's a long-term thing.
Cool. I like it. All right, man.
Oh, you're my one guy. You're my one guy.
I like it.
You're my one guy.
I'll take Mounds any day. Put me there. So I just wanted to say thank you again. Appreciate you coming on. Hopefully we have you again on in the future at some point when this pandemic thing's over. And that's really it, guys. I just want to take us out of here and say thanks to our sponsors, Planet Eclipse, ProShar, Push, Nike, Bunker Kings, Powerhouse, Infamous Paintball Pro DNA, Foundation, and First Form. Thank you very much, and we'll see you guys next time.
Later.
Thanks, Tom.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
See you soon.
Ooh.